Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and record, and let me share my new screen. So when you go to Google My Maps, and you have to search on Google My Maps. My Maps is all one word. So when you go to Google My Maps, it's this one or sign in with your Google account under this one right here. So it's just go ahead and click on that, and it shows you all the maps that I have, but you can also create a new map. So that's where you find Google My Maps. And the first one that I'm going to do, this is what, when you create a new map, this is what you get right here. And the first thing you want to do is go up here and say, put in the title. So this is my Google My Map demo. You can add a description in here. And here you can even put your bio, at least a good part of it. It's not unlimited, but it has quite a bit of space in here. And hit save. So at least put your contact information and always your DRE and your brokerage and any other compliance stuff. Like if you're Keller Williams, you have to say each office is independently owned and operated. And that sort of thing. So that's the Google, that's where you put that, is under your the description of your map. And then you're going to start adding layers. So before we start adding layers, let me show you some of the other maps that I've done, just to kind of demonstrate what you can do with those. So this is a map that I had created for one of my clients. And you can see that here she's got buyer purchases and listings sold. So in the yellow with the house is all of the listings that she has sold. And in the blue, you see what happens when I hover over it? Mm-hmm. In the blue is all the buyer purchases where I represented the buyers. So when you zoom into these, what this does, that a list of all your homes that you've sold on your website or that shows up on Zillow, it gives like more of a time frame that I sold this house and on June 8th, 2021. But what it doesn't do is combine all those really into much of a proximity. I think Zillow does do some of that with their map here, but it may not, I mean, you can't share that on your website or anything. So it makes it really hard. And like this one doesn't show nearly all of her properties that she has sold. So if you're working within certain subdivisions where homes may not even, brand new subdivisions where homes aren't even put on the MLS, but you're representing the buyer, that's not going to show up on your Zillow map. And like I said, you can't really even embed this map anywhere. It's pretty much just on Zillow. So, and a lot of people are not huge fans of Zillow. So we know that. But what it does is it creates an interactive map on your website so that your clients can go actually really get in here and see, like, this person is primarily San Ramon, and look at the density in these neighborhoods. So even if you haven't sold, this many homes, if you start building this today, it's going to start showing some patterns. And even if it's a year or two away that you're really utilizing this map, you've already got it built. So all you have to do is maintain it. So every time you sell a home, you're going to come to your Google My Map and you're going to put in a new address. Let's say, let's just pick one here. let's see, well, let's just pick one. So anytime I want to add one to the map, I unclick, let's say it was a buyer purchase. I unclick my other layers, and now I'm going to add this to the map. And the one that's clicked is buyer purchases because I represented the buyer. So I'm going to add this to the map. And I've already created my database in here, and I'm going to show you how we do that as well. So now I just have to hit edit, and I can put in the city, the state, zip, closing date, sold price, status. I represented the buyer, and then the merged address, which is the street address. And the merged address is basically the address that Google finds on the map. So that's your locator. So you have to put something in there. And you can add photos. If this was a listing and I wanted to add, you can add up to like, I think 15 photos into here. So if this is a new listing or an older listing, and you still have the photos, you can add the images really easily just by clicking here. And then you want to hit save. So that's how you add it to the map. And this one is in Oakland, I think, so it's pretty far off of what we wanted to do. So let's get back over here and go to our listings. But you can see that it could be very impressive to a seller when I go to your map and see how many homes you've sold in my neighborhood. It's going to show that it's demonstrating expertise of the neighborhood, right? So that's what let me show you what that looks like on the website. This is not the same map, but all right, so this is another client that specializes in Pleasant Hill, Martinez area. So you can see how dense her map is when we populate it with both buyer and listings. So here's my buyers that I represented, and here is my listings that I sold. And how did I use this? We go up here and you can say embed on my site. You can also set the default view. So if you want to get pretty close into your area and you don't care about these other peripheral things being shown, you can just zoom in on your preferred area and say set my default view. And then you can say embed on my site. Oops, I don't have it shareable, I'm sorry.
Patsy, do we create a new page on our site for these maps?
It depends on what map you're doing. If you're doing one for Santa Rosa and all the landmarks or the proximity to the beach, proximity to San Francisco, you might want to put that on the Santa Rosa page. If you're doing one for a listing,
okay.
you might want to put it on your listing page. So
can you do a map, something like greatschools.org, or where your school districts are? Can you create a map of that?
Sure.
Oh, great. Okay.
Yeah, as long as you can find a resource. And most schools have a map on their school page. So, that's the other thing too, is that sometimes it can serve you well to reinvent a wheel that someone has already done, to have it on your website, like the school district map. So what elementary school is in that for that neighborhood?
Okay. Yeah.
But anytime you do something like that, you've also got to be prepared to maintain it, because district borders can change.
Okay.
So let's go over here to Laura's website real quick and look at her home sold page. And here is her map on her website. So you can see that I can zoom in. I'm a visitor to her website, and I can zoom in here and see all the homes that she sold in my neighborhood. And if I click on one of these, it shows me the database that I created in there. So on this one, we have the address, the MLS number, the status, the days on market, the city, the sales price, the list price. So this went for about 7,000 over list price. The square footage, beds, baths, year built, lot size, and the
So we
last time
create
it's
the
sold.
map. We create the map outside of our site. Can you show us then how to plug it into our site? I know you clicked the link there to plug it in. How does it know where to go?
It gives you an embed code, and I'm going to show you that.
Okay.
So let me go over here first and grab the Excel spreadsheet. And since I showed you Laura's, let's just look at Laura's. So I went into Paragon and exported all of her homes that she sold through Paragon. CCAR is what she belongs to. So, and I created a spreadsheet for listings and for buyers. And you can pick and choose whatever they give you in that spreadsheet from Paragon or your MLS. See, here's the MLS, the status, number of days on market, the address, the city, sales price, list price, and you can delete whatever columns that you don't want. So in here, you're going to see that I created this column that says represented, and these are all the sellers, and I put seller in each one. So it will know that on each map location, each pinpoint, that I represented the seller. And you can kind of set up those columns when you're exporting out of Paragon. And I know you guys are berries, right, Tom? You guys have the same thing there. You can go and export all the homes that you've sold.
Yeah,
So,
got it. Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing it doesn't do for you is it usually puts in the address and not the city and state. So you always have to have the city and state, which I manually have to go in and put these in order for it to find it on the map. So, you know, one easy way of doing that is just to kind of sort this by city, and then you can go Antioch, or Pleasant Hill, and then resort it by the closing date so that it goes into the right order of date by date closed when you put it on the map, because you really want it to go by closing date, not by city. So when you manipulate your Excel spreadsheet, you want to add city and state to each of these these addresses, because Google won't find it otherwise. Google has to be able to find it. You don't need zip code, just city and state. So, and what do I mean by that? I mean, when you go into your Google map and you put in an address, see how Google is coming up with ideas of what it thinks that I mean? Okay, so if you don't have the city and state, Google's not going to find it on the map. So I was working with one which I didn't have the city in each one of them, and it showed that the agent sold it anything from Washington to Oregon to California to North Carolina, because it was just looking for the first thing that it came up with that matches that street number and that street name. And I'm like, no, this agent does not sell property in North Carolina. So you have to make sure that you have the city and state in there. So let's go back over here to our Excel spreadsheet. Once you get this built, let's say you don't want the MLS number. You can just delete that. But notice whatever column I have in here, this is our database. So anytime I add one, I'm going to have to fill out each of these columns for every property I add to my map. So this list right here is what creates your database. So when I go back over here to this one and I click on one of these properties, you can see here's the exact same columns that I had on my spreadsheet. So when you add a layer to your map, that's what creates a layer. And you can unclick these other ones. And then you can import all your data. So you're going to find a select file. All right, here's the buyers. And it has to be a CSV file or CVS file. CSV file. I always want to say it wrong. CSV file, comma delineated. So you want to add, as soon as you get that made, you can import it. And what it's going to do is it's going to add all of these to your site, your map, and it says choose the columns to position your placement. So number one, we want to have address, right? Because that's where we have the address, city, and state continue. And how are we going to title this? I usually say the address again. This is just for homes sold, okay? So finish. And now notice it's importing all my data. And there we have it. Now, I've got it on uniform style, so I can change my how it looks. I can change it to a house and make it bright purple under the uniform style. And if I click on one of these, notice it filled out all that information that for each of these columns that we asked it to do in our spreadsheet. Everyone with me so far? And it added 68 items altogether.
Wow.
So if I add these, it's going to have the same buyer represented. Let's just take off that one. Oh, that's ugly. Red and purple. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see how it does it really easily if you're doing homes sold and buyer represented homes sold. So that's how you make that map, and that's how you can use it on your website. So all you're doing is allowing your visitors to see what your scope is, what's the proximity where you work, and what's the density of the homes that you've sold in particular neighborhoods. So if you've sold homes out in Timbuktu, you don't have to add them to this map. If you're trying to show, all the homes that you sold in Pleasant Hill, just make one for Pleasant Hill. If you're trying to show all the homes that you sold in Walnut Creek, make it Walnut Creek or Santa Rosa and just put it on those individual pages. You don't have to do it on a whole map all in one.
Patsy, I have a question.
Sure.
And I apologize, I had to jump off to take a client call, but I'm back, so I look forward to watching the video replay. But is there a way, so this map is embedded in this realtor's page. Is there a way then for someone looking at this to get the map out to a separate window as opposed to having to watch it within? Yeah, there you go.
You can view larger map. They
Yeah.
can view it as a whole map. And then, yeah, so.
Okay.
They can view it as a whole one, and they can share it.
Perfect. Thank you.
So sharing it is mainly giving you an embed. So if I get the embed code, I can copy that and embed it on my website. I'm going to, since we're doing that right now, I just hit Control-C for copy, or I can do that, copy. And here I am on a city page in a website. And to add that to my website, I'm going to go over here and hit add, and I'm going to go down to embed a widget, enter the code, Control-V. Now to make these as large as possible for the Wix websites, where it stays within these borders, and these borders are primarily telling you that any screen, or whether it's mobile or on a tablet or on a computer screen or on a large screen, it should be seen if it's within these borders. It doesn't mean it can't go outside of those borders, but as long as you stay within these margins, it should be able to be seen. So they always come in with a width of 640 in the embed code and a height of 480. And I always multiply those times 1.5, which is 960. And you can edit the embed code to 720 and say update. And then you're just going to stretch it out so it fits on the page.
Yeah.
So you can see that once I get to the border, let me stretch this out a little bit more. Gotta move that down. So the scroll lines go away, both top or side and bottom. And that's all there is to it. You've got a nice map on your website now. So this one is home sold. Let me just go quickly, because I think that's pretty easily understood. So this is a copy of the San Francisco district map that I created for another website.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens on this is you can, when you create a new map, let's go over here to, let's remove this one. And let's go say San Francisco, for example. All right, so San Francisco. If I go into here and I want to call this SF neighborhoods demo, I can write a description about San Francisco, what what's unique about San Francisco and the neighborhoods, or whatever you want to put in here. And it does matter what you put in there, so don't ignore the description. So now I've got San Francisco on the map. Notice it already has the districts in here. And the same thing whether you're doing Santa Rosa or San Francisco, you're going to see neighborhoods in here. So if I want to click on, let's say, the inner Sunset, I can add this to map, but I have to also have a resource. So what districts am I actually looking at here? So, because if you notice over here, this is District 1. And you can add photos of District 1, whatever you want to input in a description of the neighborhood, like most of the homes sold are built were in 1970s to 1980s. And most recently, there was new additions from starting in 2014, new subdivisions, whatever kind of description of the neighborhood that you want. You can say the neighborhood's elementary school is Walnut Creek Elementary, the junior high, blah, blah, blah. whatever you want to put in the description of this neighborhood or district. So in order to draw these neighborhoods or districts, you've got to have some kind of resource, unless you know them, unless you're very familiar with the area. So one of the things that you can go to is called city data. Oops. And you can say Santa Rosa city data. And you're going to want to go down to where it has your neighborhood information. You may have to really scroll through all of the information on this site to find your neighborhoods. But you should be able to find the neighborhoods. And it has a map, you can see here. So you have to ignore the red and the blue. So I can say hide borders if I want. But if I click on Northgate neighborhood, I can see the detail of that. I can see the general. You don't have to be perfect on these maps, but I can see the outline of Northgate. So if I click on this one, oh, I closed that so it doesn't show me what the, there we go. This is called city data. So if I click on this, it should tell me what neighborhood I'm looking at, but I'm not seeing because I think I closed that by where I shouldn't have. There it goes, Broadway Plaza neighborhood, general info. And it's going to pop me down here. So I can actually get a lot of the information just from city data. Some of this stuff is old, back to the 2010 census, but some of it is newer information as well. Another good source is just a search on Santa Rosa neighborhoods. Now, Neighborhood Scout comes up a lot, and this shows most expensive Walnut Creek neighborhoods. I don't know how accurate any of these are, and when I looked at them, it looked like they were a little different from each other. So it makes me a little leery, but if you guys know your areas, like this one is mainly, it says White Cliff Way and Red Gear Road. That doesn't really say what neighborhood it is, and it may just be the way Neighborhood Scout does it. So you can't always depend on Neighborhood Scout. But another good source is if you go to, like this is San Marcos. So I went to the city of San Marcos, and they have a neighborhood map. And the city that you're working on, the city government may already have a neighborhood map built. So I can easily see where the stuff is, Twin Oaks Valley. You can click on any of these and find them, I think. Richmar, Richland. So you're going to have to find a resource unless you know it by heart. But let's go back over here. Let's say we've got our resource, and now we're going to draw this. Oh, so let me go over here. So how do we draw this? So this one is district number 1. So I'm actually going to delete that just so I can show you how to draw it. So we're going to go up here to our line, draw a line, add a line or a shape, and start somewhere where you are confident, and you're just going to follow the area to the best of your ability. By clicking on each point here. Like I said, it doesn't have to be completely accurate, just a good approximation. And when you get back to the starting point, you can name that. So I'm going to call it SF District 1. Here I can put in a description of the district. I can add photos. And I can hit save. And now I can also color it from here, like choose a color and choose an icon. So here, yeah, it's got a martini glass. You could do all the bars in a neighborhood. All the restaurants, etc. So let's just leave it the color it is. So that's how we draw. And yes, it may take a little time to draw all those. And you can see I've got some gaps in here. So you can also pick up your polygon. Let's get out of that one. And notice you can kind of move it around if you got a gap that you didn't mean to have in there and put it where you want it. So it's pretty easy to draw these. It's just time consuming. And like this one, I've got some gaps in here. I probably could have done a better job on this one. I may just want to delete it and redraw it. But notice that all of these districts that I have in here were already on there. So let's go back to district number 1. It has outer Seacliff, outer Richmond, Richmond district. If I go back to, oh, I think I got rid of it, didn't I? There we go. So if I put in San Francisco, California, and I want to do District 1, it's got my districts already in here. So I can just click on that and say, add to map. And this is the one that's clicked, that layer. So it's going to add it to that layer. But let's rename this one SF. District 1, okay. Now, Richmond District, also add to map. And Seacliff, add to map. Vista Del Mar, add to map. Lake Street, add to map. So I'm now adding all of the neighborhoods within District 1 to my map. And again, you can edit these. You can edit each one of these and put in photos and a description, whatever you want to put in here. You can change the name, etc. So you already have these on the map. All you have to do is add them. And the individual styles, you can say individual styles and you can add the name. So you can see it says Richmond District. Now, when you create if you're going to create a border around this that is translucent or somewhat transparent, you can see the names underneath through that. So I prefer to have no labels on it. It less complicates it. But if your map requires it, you know that you can have it. So also if you go to uniform style, it combines all these into one style. And now you can add one color to the whole style. Let's do purple. And now if I wanted to add my line around it, same thing. I'll just go quickly up here. and then you put in, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, you can add the label. So you can see, let's see, undo. And again, you can put in a description and add images or video even, and hit save. So when it's closed as a uniform style, now you can see all the different neighborhoods within that. If I expand this out, you can see all the neighborhoods that are in there. When it's in individual styles, if you want to color coordinate it, unfortunately, you have to kind of go one by one. Like that. So that's how you draw a border around a map. And that's how I was able to get this one built. So let's go on to another. Anyone have any questions about doing that? You just have to find a good source for neighborhoods, and that's not always as easy as it sounds, but city data, it can be a good source, and so can Neighborhood Scout to a certain extent. When you search on neighborhoods, for example, Santa Rosa, you might even get another agent's website coming up. Mentors Moving, Top Santa Rosa Neighborhood Guide with a map. Okay, well, that's probably how they did this. Let's see if they truly have a map. So if I click on the McDonald's history, okay, that's how they did this. So even Santa Rosa has a resource. Being made with Google My Maps. So you might be able to find something like this where someone has already done the work for you that you can kind of copy, but you can also, I don't see that they did a very good job of drawing the borders though. So be careful of the source that you use. You never know what you're going to get. And if there is a government page, I highly recommend using that. So we're getting later on time, so I do want to go over these other things that you can do with this. This again is another home sold, and that's home sold. So here's a listing one that I created. So in here, I pinpointed my listing. So this is 1209 Center Avenue, Martinez. So the closest elementary school, the elementary school for that one is Hidden Valley. So I went from, I said, let's start here. And now let's get directions, add a direction, okay? So it's going to put 1209 Center Avenue as a new layer here. And it's gonna say, what do you wanna find? So you can say, let's say Forest Hills Aquatic Park down here, since I don't have that one on the map. So how far is it to the Forest Hills? There it comes up right there, Aquatic Park. And now it's going to draw how far it is from A to B. And again, you don't have to have that in your, you can say, proximity to Forest Hills Aquatic Center. Yes, and it's going to fix my spelling and hit save. So this is like if you have a listing and you want to put this on your listing page. So how far is it to the beach? How far is it to the mountains? How far is it to skiing? How far is it to the nearest casino? What are the local bars? You can do a lot of landmarks, or you can do one for schools, one for parks. You know, how far is it to Six Flags? Anything that you want to do that you think that would make this, even how far is it to the on-ramp for I-4? What's the closest way to go? Obviously, this is really close to Highway 4. And this is actually, I did 2 other ones. How far is it to Concord? How far is it to Walnut Creek? So this one is more listing specific. Let's see if I had another one I was going to show you. Nope, I didn't. I wanted to make sure that I came up with all of them that I had. So basically, area landmarks, listing location and proximity to area landmarks or schools is an awesome thing to do for listings. City neighborhoods, open houses, homes sold. So there's whatever you think that makes a good visual to get a point across that you can't show in any other way. An interactive map might be a really good resource to use. And it's really easy to embed them on your website. If you need help doing that or need a page created to do that, you just need to let us know and we can help with that. I think we're pretty much running out of time here. Does anyone have any questions?
No, this has been very informative, though. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Google My Maps can be used in so many ways. I saw where people were actually primarily in the beginning. I don't know if you remember, what was it called? My Google Spaces or something like that, where the more people, the more you reacted to it, or like, it was kind of like pinpointing on a map where you were having dinner, you know, and so you were constantly adding to your map everywhere you went. You were checking in here, you were checking in there. And it was kind of like the same thing that people do on Facebook, like, oh, I'm at a restaurant, here's my food, you know, which really irritates the crap out of me a lot of times. But they used to have that, and a lot of that was just helping Google build their maps and their and the things that were located within those cities. So that helped Google a lot to do that when people were doing that. But it doesn't even, that doesn't, kind of like Google Plus. Remember Google Plus? That's kind of gone by the wayside. And I remember when I first started with Keller Williams, probably about 5 years ago, I attended a class by Zach Younger, if you know who he is. And that was the big thing, telling us how to use this Google Spaces by becoming an active map person, you know, put it on your map, put it on your map. Well, we helped them build their map system for sure. But that's kind of gone by the wayside. Now you guys can create your own Google Maps and use them for good and not for evil. Right, Diane?
I don't know. I've got a little bit of evil in me, Patsy.
Oh, you should have waited to say that when I stopped the recording.